In the heart of the Arabian Peninsula, amidst the bustling trade routes and rugged desert landscapes, a story unfolds that would forever alter the course of human history. Imagine a world where tribal allegiances dictated survival, where superstitions ruled daily life, and where social hierarchies were as immovable as the ancient mountains surrounding Mecca. It is within this complex tapestry of 7th century Arabian society that our narrative begins, with the birth of a child whose destiny would transcend the boundaries of time and geography. The year was 570 CE, or 12 Rabi al-Awwal in the Islamic calendar, when Amina, daughter of Wahb ibn Abd Manaf from the prestigious Zara family, gave birth to her son in the sacred city of Mecca. The air was thick with anticipation, though none could have foreseen the magnitude of what lay ahead. This child, whose lineage traced back to the noble house of Ishmael through his father Abdullah, son of Abdul Muttalib, entered a world fraught with challenges from the very beginning. Tragically, Abdullah's journey with his newborn son was cut short as he passed away before even setting eyes upon him, leaving behind a legacy that would be carried forward by his yet unnamed infant. Amina, now a young widow, embraced her role as both mother and protector with unwavering dedication. She nurtured her son through his formative years, instilling in him values that would shape his character for a lifetime. However, fate dealt another cruel blow when Muhammad was just 6 years old. Amina, too, departed from this world, leaving behind an orphan boy whose future seemed uncertain in a society where family connections meant everything. The weight of responsibility now fell upon the shoulders of Abdul Muttalib, the revered grandfather who had once led the Quraysh tribe with wisdom and authority. Recognizing the special qualities already emerging in his grandson, Abdul Muttalib took particular care in raising the young boy, often seen seated beside him in the shade of the Kaaba, sharing stories of their ancestors and the rich history of their people. These moments of mentorship were tragically cut short 2 years later when Abdul Muttalib himself passed away. In his final wisdom, he entrusted Muhammad to the care of Abu Talib, younger brother to Abdullah and a man known for his integrity and leadership within the Banu Hashim clan. Under Abu Talib's guardianship, Muhammad grew into adolescence, developing characteristics that would distinguish him among his peers. His reputation for honesty and integrity began to spread throughout Mecca, earning him the respected title Al-Amin, the trustworthy one. Even as a young boy helping his uncle with trade caravans, he demonstrated remarkable business acumen and interpersonal skills that belied his years. At the age of 12, an event occurred that would later be viewed as prophetic in nature. During one of his trading journeys to Busra with Abu Talib, Muhammad encountered a Christian monk named Bahira. The elderly ascetic, known for his deep knowledge of scriptures and spiritual insight, observed something extraordinary about the young boy. Drawing Abu Talib aside, Bahira delivered a cryptic warning. "Guard this boy against the Jews, for a great future awaits your nephew." Though the words must have seemed mysterious at the time, they planted seeds of curiosity and expectation that would germinate in the years to come. Despite this encounter, Muhammad's life continued along its steady course, characterized by quiet contemplation and increasing responsibilities within his community. As Muhammad approached adulthood, his character continued to develop in ways that set him apart from his contemporaries. While many young men of his age were drawn to the revelry and excesses common in Meccan society, Muhammad maintained a reserved demeanor, often withdrawing to the hills surrounding Mecca for solitude and reflection. These periods of seclusion became increasingly important as he observed the social injustices and moral decay plaguing his community. The violent feuds between tribes, the exploitation of the weak by the powerful, and the rampant idol worship troubled him deeply, planting seeds of reform that would later blossom into a movement that would transform not only Arabia, but the entire world. During these formative years, Muhammad's reputation for integrity and wisdom continued to grow. Merchants sought his services as an agent, knowing that any transaction conducted under his supervision would be fair and honorable. His ability to resolve disputes and mediate conflicts earned him respect across tribal lines, breaking down barriers that had long divided the Meccan community. Little did anyone realize that these early demonstrations of leadership and moral authority were merely precursors to a mission that would challenge the very foundations of Arabian society and establish principles of justice, equality, and monotheism that would resonate through the ages. As Muhammad entered his 20s, his exceptional character caught the attention of Khadijah bint Khuwailid, a woman whose influence would prove pivotal in the unfolding drama of his life. Khadijah was no ordinary woman. She was a successful merchant, wealthy beyond measure, and possessed of a beauty that turned heads wherever she went. Yet despite her privileged position in Meccan society, she remained unmarried after the death of her first husband. Her discerning eye had rejected numerous suitors, all prominent figures in their own right, until fate intervened to bring her path crossing with Muhammad's. Khadijah had heard whispers of a young man whose integrity was unmatched, whose business acumen rivaled seasoned traders, and whose character commanded universal respect. Intrigued, she decided to employ him for one of her trading expeditions to Syria. Muhammad, now 25 years old, accepted the opportunity, leading a caravan northward accompanied by a servant named Maysara. As they journeyed through the harsh desert landscape, Maysara observed something extraordinary about his employer. He noticed how Muhammad treated everyone with dignity and fairness, how he negotiated with wisdom beyond his years, and how he conducted himself with an aura of natural authority that inspired trust and respect. Upon their return to Mecca, Khadijah eagerly questioned Maysara about the expedition. The servant's glowing report exceeded her highest expectations. Stories of Muhammad's miraculous intervention during a heat wave, when clouds mysteriously shielded him from the sun's scorching rays, added an almost supernatural dimension to his character. For Khadijah, these accounts confirmed what her intuition had already suggested. This man was destined for greatness. Despite the 15-year age difference, Khadijah felt an undeniable connection to Muhammad's pure heart and noble character. Through her sister, she initiated a conversation that would change both their lives forever. When asked why he hadn't married yet, Muhammad's humble response revealed his circumstances rather than lack of desire. Khadijah's sister then posed a hypothetical question. What if I offered you a wife of nobility and beauty? Muhammad's incredulous chuckle spoke volumes about his self-perception. How could someone of his modest means aspire to marry one of Mecca's most distinguished women? Yet Khadijah's determination knew no bounds. She saw beyond social conventions and material considerations, recognizing in Muhammad qualities that transcended worldly measures of worth. Their marriage marked the beginning of a partnership that would become legendary in its depth and devotion. Khadijah provided more than just emotional support. She became Muhammad's steadfast companion through every trial and triumph that lay ahead. As their family grew, welcoming 3 sons and 4 daughters, though tragically, the boys would not survive childhood, their home became a sanctuary of love and understanding. Khadijah's wealth enabled Muhammad to focus on matters of the spirit rather than material concerns, while her unwavering faith in his mission would prove crucial during the challenging years to come. Their marriage marked the beginning of a partnership that would become legendary in its depth and devotion. Khadijah provided more than just emotional support. She became Muhammad's steadfast companion through every trial and triumph that lay ahead. As their family grew, welcoming 3 sons and 4 daughters, though tragically, the boys would not survive childhood, their home became a sanctuary of love and understanding. Khadijah's wealth enabled Muhammad to focus on matters of the spirit rather than material concerns, while her unwavering faith in his mission would prove crucial during the challenging years to come. Together, they adopted Zaid, a young boy who had been separated from his parents and sold into slavery. Muhammad's treatment of Zaid defied all social norms of the time. When Zaid's father came seeking his son's release, Muhammad presented an unprecedented choice. Zaid could decide his own fate. To everyone's astonishment, Zaid chose to remain with Muhammad, who had shown him such profound love and respect. This act of adoption, rare in Arab society, demonstrated Muhammad's revolutionary approach to human relationships and social justice. Their household became a model of compassion and equality, where servants were treated as family members and where decisions were made through mutual consultation rather than dictation. Khadijah's influence extended beyond their immediate family. She served as a bridge between Muhammad and Meccan society, helping to establish his credibility among the elite merchant class. Her support proved invaluable when Muhammad began withdrawing to the cave of Hira for meditation and prayer, seeking answers to the moral and spiritual questions that troubled him about Meccan society. As the years passed, Muhammad's growing concern for the state of his people became increasingly evident. He witnessed firsthand how the wealthy exploited the poor, how tribal feuds consumed lives without purpose, and how the worship of countless idols had replaced the pure monotheism of their ancestors. These observations weighed heavily on his heart, driving him to seek solace in the solitude of Mount Hira, just a few miles from Mecca. Here, in the quiet darkness of the cave, he would spend countless nights in deep contemplation, searching for meaning in a world that seemed to have lost its way. It was during one of these solitary vigils, when the stillness of the night was broken only by the whisper of the desert wind, that everything changed. An ethereal presence filled the cave, taking the form of an angelic being whose radiance illuminated the darkness. The figure commanded Muhammad to read, a request that must have seemed absurd to a man who had never learned letters or numbers. When Muhammad protested his inability, the angel enveloped him in an embrace so powerful that it left him breathless. Again came the command to read, followed by gentle instruction. Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man what he knew not. The words poured forth like a torrent, overwhelming Muhammad with their significance and power. Trembling with a mixture of awe and fear, he made his way back to Khadijah's arms, seeking comfort and explanation for what had transpired. His wife listened intently to his account, her heart swelling with recognition of the moment's gravity. Never, she declared firmly. God would never let such a thing happen to you, for you are faithful in trust, you assist your fellow men, and you speak truthfully. Her reassurance provided temporary relief, but the weight of what had occurred pressed heavily upon Muhammad's soul. Seeking further confirmation, Khadijah consulted her cousin Waraqah ibn Nawfal, a scholar well-versed in religious texts. Waraqah's reaction was immediate and profound. Holy, holy, he exclaimed upon hearing the account. This is the same spirit that came to Moses. Your husband will be the prophet of his people. Though initially overwhelmed by doubt and uncertainty, Muhammad gradually came to understand the magnitude of his calling. The revelations continued to flow, each one building upon the last, forming a coherent message that challenged the very foundations of Arabian society. For several years, Muhammad shared these revelations only with his closest family and friends. Khadijah became the first believer, followed swiftly by Ali, then Zayd, and finally Abu Bakr, each conversion marking a step forward in the establishment of a new faith. These early followers formed the nucleus of what would become a global movement, their faith unwavering despite the daunting task ahead. They met secretly, discussing the implications of the revelations and strategizing how best to share this message with others. Muhammad's initial attempts at preaching were cautious and measured. He approached his relatives and close acquaintances first, explaining the concept of monotheism and the importance of social justice. His arguments were compelling, drawing from both divine revelation and rational thought. The idea that all humans were equal in the eyes of God resonated particularly strongly with those who had suffered under Mecca's rigid class system. However, as converts began to multiply, resistance from established powers grew proportionally fiercer. The ruling elite of Mecca viewed Muhammad's message as a direct threat to their authority and economic interests. The annual pilgrimage to the Kaaba, which housed hundreds of idols worshipped by various tribes, generated substantial revenue for the city. Any challenge to polytheistic practices risked disrupting this lucrative system. Moreover, Muhammad's teachings about social equality contradicted the hierarchical structure that maintained their power. Thus began a campaign of persecution that would test the resolve of early Muslims to their very limits. Despite these mounting pressures, Muhammad persisted in his mission, guided by the continuing revelations that provided both spiritual nourishment and practical guidance. Each verse of what would become the Quran addressed specific challenges faced by the growing Muslim community while simultaneously establishing fundamental principles of faith and conduct. The message emphasized mercy, patience, and perseverance, qualities that would prove essential in navigating the turbulent times ahead. As Muhammad's public ministry expanded, the opposition from Mecca's ruling elite intensified with alarming speed. The initial mockery and ridicule evolved into systematic persecution, targeting not just the prophet himself, but every individual who dared to embrace his message. Converts from influential families faced particular pressure, with family members employing every tactic imaginable to force them back to traditional beliefs. Slaves who converted were subjected to especially brutal treatment, their owners using physical torture as a means of coercion. The situation reached a crisis point when the leaders of various tribes convened to coordinate their efforts against the growing movement. They devised a strategy to attack the problem at its roots, instructing each family to take responsibility for punishing their own members who had embraced Islam. This decentralized approach proved devastatingly effective, as personal relationships and family bonds were weaponized against the believers. Homes became battlegrounds, with parents beating their children, husbands threatening their wives, and masters torturing their slaves, all in an attempt to stamp out the new faith. During these dark times, Muhammad found himself in an ironic position of relative safety. His position within the Banu Hashim clan, combined with the protection offered by his uncle Abu Talib, shielded him from direct physical harm. However, this protection came at a cost. The tribal elders repeatedly approached Abu Talib, urging him to restrain his nephew or face the consequences of maintaining his support. Each time, Abu Talib responded with a firm declaration of his commitment to protect Muhammad, regardless of the personal risks involved. The psychological toll on Muhammad was immense. He watched helplessly as his followers endured unimaginable suffering, torn between his duty to continue spreading the message and his desire to protect his community from harm. Many of his companions bore visible scars from their ordeal, backs lashed raw from whippings, bodies weakened from starvation, spirits tested by isolation and rejection. Yet remarkably, their faith only seemed to strengthen under persecution, creating a paradoxical situation where adversity bred resilience and conviction. Faced with this escalating crisis, Muhammad made a fateful decision that would mark a turning point in the history of Islam. Having heard accounts of a just ruler in Abyssinia named Al-Najashi, known for his tolerance and wisdom, he advised his followers to seek refuge in that distant land. This migration, known as the First Hijrah, began quietly and in small groups to avoid detection. Families packed their meager belongings and slipped away under cover of darkness, leaving behind their homes and livelihoods in search of religious freedom. The Abyssinian king received the refugees with unexpected warmth and understanding. When representatives from Mecca arrived demanding their return, claiming these Muslims were causing political unrest, Al-Najashi summoned the exiles to hear their case directly. It was Ja'far ibn Abu Talib, cousin to both Muhammad and Ali, who spoke eloquently on behalf of the refugees. He painted a vivid picture of their former lives in Mecca, a society plunged in barbarism, where idol worship reigned supreme and moral values had deteriorated completely. He described how Muhammad had emerged as a beacon of hope, teaching them to worship one God, to speak truth, and to live with integrity. Their crime, he explained, was simply believing in these teachings and refusing to return to their previous way of life. The king's response was both surprising and significant. After careful consideration, he declared that these people should be allowed to remain in his kingdom, protected from their persecutors. This decision marked the first official recognition of Islam by a foreign power and provided crucial breathing space for the fledgling community. News of this safe haven traveled quickly, prompting a second wave of emigration from Mecca to Abyssinia. Within a short period, nearly 100 Muslims had found refuge in this Christian kingdom, establishing a precedent for peaceful coexistence between different faith communities. Back in Mecca, the absence of these early converts did little to ease the pressure on Muhammad and his remaining followers. If anything, the anger of the Quraysh intensified. They redoubled their efforts to discredit Muhammad, spreading false rumors about his sanity and character. Some claimed he was a poet possessed by jinn, while others accused him of seeking personal power and wealth. The irony of these accusations was lost on no one, least of all Muhammad himself, who lived a life of simplicity and generosity despite his wife's considerable wealth. One particularly memorable confrontation occurred when Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, a prominent leader among the Quraysh, approached Muhammad with what he considered an irresistible offer. "O son of my brother," he began, acknowledging their familial connection, "you are distinguished by your qualities, yet you have denounced our gods. I am here to make a proposition to you." The terms were generous: wealth beyond imagination, leadership of the Quraysh, even kingship over Mecca, all in exchange for abandoning his mission. Muhammad listened patiently, then recited verses from what would become Surah Fussilat, emphasizing the transient nature of worldly power compared to eternal salvation. The meeting ended with Utbah walking away, shaken by the encounter but unconvinced. Meanwhile, the persecution in Mecca reached new levels of brutality. The hill of Ramada and the valley of Bata became notorious sites of torture, where Muslims were subjected to horrific punishments. Bilal ibn Rabah, an Ethiopian slave who had embraced Islam, became a symbol of this suffering. His master, Umar ibn Khalaf, would drag him out into the scorching desert heat, placing a massive stone on his chest while demanding he renounce his faith. Yet even in such extreme conditions, Bilal's response remained steadfast. Ahad, Ahad, God is one. These acts of cruelty served only to strengthen the resolve of the Muslim community, creating bonds of solidarity forged in the fire of persecution. The situation took an unexpected turn when Umar ibn al-Khattab, one of Islam's most formidable opponents, experienced a dramatic transformation. Renowned for his strength and ferocity, Umar had dedicated himself to destroying the new faith. One day, driven by rage, he set out to kill Muhammad, sword in hand. However, fate intervened when a man revealed that Umar's own sister and her husband had converted to Islam. Enraged, Umar changed course toward his sister's home, determined to deal with this betrayal personally. As he approached the house, the sound of Quranic recitation reached his ears. Bursting through the door, Umar demanded to know what was happening. His sister attempted to hide the scrolls containing the Quranic verses, but Umar's suspicions were confirmed. In a fit of anger, he struck her husband, and when his sister intervened, he hit her as well, drawing blood. But instead of cowering in fear, his sister stood firm, declaring her faith with unwavering conviction. "You enemy of God, you have beaten me because I believe in God, whether you like it or not. I testify that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his slave and messenger." The sight of his sister's blood and the clarity of her testimony pierced Umar's heart. He demanded to hear the words she had been reading. As the verses of the Quran flowed into his ears, tears welled up in his eyes. Something profound shifted within him. Without hesitation, he rushed to Muhammad, intending not to harm, but to declare his allegiance. Those gathered around the Prophet initially tried to shield him, fearing another attack. But Muhammad recognized the change in Umar immediately. When asked why he had come, Umar replied with humility and joy, "I have come to say that I believe in God and his messenger." Umar's conversion sent shock waves through Meccan society. Here was one of their most feared warriors, now standing firmly in the ranks of those they sought to destroy. His presence brought new strength and confidence to the Muslim community, emboldening others to openly declare their faith. The dynamics of power in Mecca began to shift subtly but significantly. No longer could the Quraysh dismiss the Muslims as a marginal group of weaklings and slaves. With Umar's leadership qualities now aligned with their cause, the Muslim community gained a formidable advocate and strategist. Recognizing the strategic value of Umar's conversion, Muhammad wasted no time in utilizing his talents. Umar's boldness and military expertise proved invaluable in organizing the community's defense and planning their responses to persecution. He quickly became one of Muhammad's closest advisors, his loyalty absolute and his dedication unwavering. The transformation of such a prominent figure served as powerful evidence of the Quran's impact and the sincerity of Muhammad's mission. However, the increased visibility of the Muslim community also attracted renewed hostility from their opponents. The Quraysh leaders, alarmed by the growing number of conversions despite their best efforts at suppression, implemented a total boycott against the Banu Hashim clan. This severe measure aimed to isolate Muhammad and his protectors economically and socially, hoping that hardship would force them to abandon their cause. For 3 years, the clan lived in a remote valley called Shirb Abi Talib, surviving on minimal resources while maintaining their commitment to protecting Muhammad. During this period of isolation, the Muslim community faced perhaps their greatest test of faith. Basic necessities became luxuries, and social interaction was reduced to clandestine meetings. Yet even in these dire circumstances, the community's spirit remained unbroken. They continued to meet secretly, memorizing and studying the Quranic revelations, that provided both spiritual sustenance and practical guidance. Children learned alongside adults, ensuring that the message would be preserved across generations. Women played crucial roles in maintaining morale and organizing limited resources, demonstrating remarkable resilience and organizational skills. When the boycott was finally lifted after 3 years, the community emerged stronger than ever, their bonds of unity forged in the crucible of shared suffering. However, they were soon confronted with personal losses that tested their faith anew. The deaths of Abu Talib and Khadijah within a short period left Muhammad particularly vulnerable, losing both his primary protector and his most steadfast supporter. This difficult phase, later referred to as the Year of Sadness, marked a transition point in Muhammad's mission. In response to these challenges, Muhammad began exploring new possibilities for spreading his message. He undertook several journeys to nearby towns, including Taif, hoping to find more receptive audiences. Though initially met with rejection and physical violence in Taif, these experiences helped refine his approach to dawah, invitation to Islam. He learned valuable lessons about patience, diplomacy, and strategic timing, skills that would prove crucial in the years to come. The changing dynamics of Meccan society required new strategies for survival and growth. Muhammad started marrying strategically, forming alliances that would strengthen the Muslim community's position. His marriage to Sauda bint Zama, a widow who had returned from Abyssinia, exemplified this approach. By extending his protection through marriage, Muhammad created new networks of support while honoring those who had sacrificed for the cause. These alliances, though sometimes misunderstood through modern lenses, played vital roles in building a resilient community capable of weathering ongoing persecution. As the situation in Mecca continued to deteriorate, Muhammad received permission to migrate to Yathrib, later Medina, where a significant number of residents had expressed interest in his message. The plan for this migration, known as the Hijra, had to be executed with utmost secrecy and precision. The Quraysh leaders, realizing their control over Muhammad was slipping away, plotted to assassinate him. They selected representatives from various tribes to carry out the assassination simultaneously, hoping to prevent retaliation from any single tribe. However, divine intervention thwarted their plans when Angel Gabriel informed Muhammad of the impending danger. Leaving Ali to sleep in his bed as a decoy, Muhammad slipped out of Mecca under cover of darkness, accompanied only by Abu Bakr. Their journey southward to the Cave of Thor became the stuff of legend. Despite the Quraysh offering a reward of 100 camels for their capture, the pair remained hidden for 3 days, protected by nothing more than spider webs and a dove's nest that miraculously appeared at the cave's entrance. From there, they traveled north to Yathrib, where preparations for their arrival had been underway for some time. The welcome they received in Medina marked a new chapter in Islamic history. The Ansar, helpers, local residents who had embraced Islam, opened their homes and hearts to the Muhajirun, emigrants from Mecca. This unprecedented display of hospitality and brotherhood created a social revolution that would serve as a model for future Muslim communities. The bonds formed during this period transcended tribal affiliations, establishing a new basis for social organization rooted in shared faith and mutual support rather than blood ties or economic interests. In Medina, Muhammad faced the challenge of uniting a diverse population composed of various Arab tribes, Jewish communities, and recent Muslim converts. His first act was to establish a mosque, not just as a place of worship, but as a center for community governance and social cohesion. This mosque became the heart of Medina's transformation, serving multiple functions that reflected the holistic nature of Islamic teachings. It was here that disputes were resolved, treaties were negotiated, and social welfare programs were organized. To formalize the new social order, Muhammad drafted a charter that remains one of history's earliest written constitutions. This document established Medina as a pluralistic society where different groups could coexist peacefully under shared principles of justice and mutual respect. It defined the rights and responsibilities of all residents, regardless of their religious affiliation, while establishing Islam as the framework for governance. The charter explicitly prohibited blood feuds, established collective security arrangements, and created mechanisms for conflict resolution that prioritized dialogue over violence. However, the peace established in Medina was constantly threatened by external forces. The Quraysh of Mecca, unwilling to accept the loss of their influence, launched repeated attacks on the Muslim community. These military confrontations, including the battles of Badr and Uhud, tested the community's resolve and forced them to develop sophisticated defense strategies. Each battle brought its own lessons about leadership, strategy, and the importance of faith in overcoming seemingly impossible odds. Through these trials, Muhammad demonstrated remarkable diplomatic skills. He negotiated treaties with neighboring tribes, established trade networks that bypassed Meccan control, and created alliances that strengthened Medina's position. The community flourished under his leadership, developing agricultural projects, establishing markets, and creating social welfare systems that cared for the needy. Education became a priority, with Quranic schools emerging throughout the city, ensuring that the next generation would be well-versed in both religious and secular knowledge. As news of Medina's success spread, delegations from across Arabia began arriving to learn about this new way of life. Many were impressed by what they saw: a society where the strong protected the weak, where justice was administered fairly regardless of social status, and where spiritual devotion translated into concrete actions benefiting the entire community. These visitors often returned to their own regions as ambassadors for Islam, carrying with them not just theological concepts, but practical examples of how faith could transform society. Muhammad's approach to leadership evolved as the community grew. He established councils for consultation, involving both men and women in decision-making processes. Economic reforms ensured fair distribution of resources, while social initiatives addressed issues ranging from healthcare to environmental conservation. The Friday congregational prayers became opportunities for community engagement, with sermons addressing both spiritual matters and practical concerns facing the population. The transformation of Medina from a collection of warring tribes into a cohesive, prosperous community served as living proof of Islam's potential to create positive social change. As more people embraced the faith, they contributed their skills and resources to building institutions that would endure beyond their lifetimes. Schools, hospitals, and public works projects began appearing throughout the region, funded by zakat, charitable contributions, and awqaf, endowments, established by the growing Muslim community. This period also saw the development of international relations. Muhammad sent envoys to neighboring rulers, inviting them to learn about Islam while establishing diplomatic channels. Letters were dispatched to leaders across the Middle East, including the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, the Persian Emperor Khosrow II, and various tribal chieftains. Some responded positively, initiating dialogues that would eventually lead to peaceful relations and trade agreements. Others remained skeptical, but maintained open lines of communication, recognizing the growing influence of the Medinan state. Within Medina itself, social innovations continued to emerge. The concept of Bayt al-Mal, public treasury, was developed to manage community resources efficiently. Orphanages and shelters for the vulnerable were established, staffed by volunteers trained in both religious and practical skills. Agricultural cooperatives helped maximize food production, while craft guilds ensured quality standards in manufacturing. These developments demonstrated how Islamic principles could be applied to create comprehensive systems of social organization that benefited all members of society. As the community expanded, Muhammad faced new challenges in maintaining unity while accommodating diversity. Different cultural traditions needed to be integrated into the Islamic framework, requiring careful negotiation and compromise. Legal systems were developed that could address both universal principles and local customs, creating a flexible yet consistent approach to governance. Educational institutions evolved to include not just religious studies, but also sciences, literature, and arts, reflecting the Quranic emphasis on seeking knowledge in all its forms. Throughout these developments, Muhammad maintained his personal commitment to simplicity and service. Despite becoming the leader of a growing state, he continued to live in modest accommodations, participate in manual labor, and personally attend to the needs of his community. His example inspired others to contribute their best efforts to the common good, creating a culture of excellence and dedication that would characterize Muslim civilization for centuries to come. The success of Medina's transformation became evident when, in 628 CE, Muhammad led a large contingent of Muslims to Mecca for the lesser pilgrimage, Umrah. Though initially prevented from entering the city, The resulting Treaty of Hudaybiyah demonstrated the community's growing influence in diplomatic sophistication. The agreement, though apparently unfavorable to Muslims at first glance, actually worked to their advantage by allowing them to focus on internal development while gaining international recognition as a legitimate political entity. Over the following years, the Muslim community continued to expand its influence through both peaceful means and military campaigns. Strategic alliances were formed with various tribes, while trade networks extended throughout the Arabian Peninsula. The annual pilgrimage to Mecca, once dominated by idol worship, gradually transformed into a showcase of Islamic unity and devotion. Delegations from distant lands arrived regularly, seeking to learn about the faith that had created such remarkable social transformation. Military campaigns, when necessary, were conducted with strict ethical guidelines that emphasized minimizing harm and maximizing mercy. Prisoners of war were treated with dignity, given choices about their future, and often released without ransom. Conquered territories were governed according to principles of justice and consultation, with local populations retaining their religious practices while contributing to the broader Islamic community. These policies helped ensure that expansion was accompanied by genuine acceptance rather than mere submission. The administrative systems developed during this period laid the foundation for future Islamic governance. Departments were established for finance, defense, education, and social welfare, each operating according to principles derived from Quranic teachings. Record-keeping became standardized, with documents preserved in both written and oral forms to ensure accuracy and accessibility. Judicial systems were refined to handle increasingly complex cases, while educational institutions expanded to train qualified administrators and scholars. Cultural development flourished alongside political and social progress. Poetry, music, and art adapted to express Islamic themes, while maintaining regional characteristics. Scientific inquiry was encouraged, leading to advances in fields ranging from astronomy to medicine. Architectural innovations reflected both functional needs and aesthetic values, creating spaces that inspired spiritual reflection while serving practical purposes. These cultural achievements demonstrated how Islamic principles could enrich human civilization rather than restrict it. As the community continued to grow, mechanisms for social mobility and participation evolved. People from all backgrounds found opportunities to contribute their talents and energies to the common good. Leadership positions were based on merit and capability rather than birth or wealth, creating a dynamic society where individuals could rise according to their abilities and dedication. This meritocratic approach helped maintain enthusiasm and innovation while preventing the formation of rigid class structures. The integration of diverse populations into the Muslim community required careful attention to maintaining core values while accommodating legitimate differences. Muhammad's leadership style emphasized consultation and consensus building, encouraging input from various segments of society while maintaining clear direction and purpose. This approach fostered a sense of ownership and responsibility among community members, making them active participants in shaping their collective future rather than passive recipients of decisions made by others. Economic reforms continued to evolve, addressing issues of wealth distribution, labor rights, and environmental stewardship. Systems were developed to ensure fair wages, safe working conditions, and reasonable working hours. Environmental conservation became a priority, with regulations established to prevent overgrazing, deforestation, and water pollution. These measures reflected the Quranic principle of trusteeship over Earth's resources, emphasizing responsibility toward future generations as well as current needs. As the end of Muhammad's earthly mission approached, the community he had built stood as testament to the transformative power of faith combined with practical action. The institutions, systems, and values established during his lifetime would continue to guide Muslim civilization through periods of both prosperity and challenge. The principles of justice, equality, and service to humanity that characterized Medina's transformation would inspire countless generations to strive for similar achievements in their own contexts. The legacy of this period extended far beyond the boundaries of Arabia, influencing social, political, and cultural developments throughout the world. The model of community building demonstrated in Medina showed how shared values could transcend ethnic, linguistic, and cultural differences to create cohesive societies. The emphasis on education, consultation, and social responsibility provided tools for addressing contemporary challenges while maintaining core principles. The integration of spiritual devotion with practical action offered a comprehensive approach to human development that continues to resonate with people seeking meaningful solutions to complex problems. Through all these developments, Muhammad maintained his role as teacher, guide, and exemplar. His daily interactions with people from all walks of life demonstrated how theoretical principles could be applied in practical situations. Whether resolving disputes, counseling individuals, or leading communal prayers, his actions consistently embodied the values he preached. This consistency between word and deed reinforced the credibility of his message while providing concrete examples for others to follow. The expanding network of Muslim communities throughout Arabia began functioning as interconnected centers of learning and development. Each settlement adapted the Medinan model to its local context while maintaining essential elements of Islamic practice and governance. Regular communication between these communities ensured consistency while allowing for appropriate variation. Scholars traveled between centers, sharing knowledge and experiences that enriched the collective understanding of how to implement Islamic principles effectively. As the Muslim community grew more established, attention turned to preserving and transmitting its foundational teachings. Efforts intensified to collect and organize the Quranic revelations, ensuring their accurate preservation for future generations. Educational institutions developed curricula that balanced religious studies with practical skills, preparing students to contribute meaningfully to society while maintaining their spiritual commitments. These educational initiatives helped create a knowledgeable citizenry capable of addressing both spiritual and temporal needs. The social welfare systems established during this period demonstrated how religious principles could translate into effective public policy. Programs addressing poverty, healthcare, education, and environmental sustainability showed that faith-based initiatives could achieve tangible results while maintaining moral integrity. The emphasis on zakat and sadaqah, voluntary charity, created sustainable funding mechanisms for social programs, while volunteer networks ensured efficient delivery of services. These systems helped create a safety net that protected vulnerable populations while promoting self-sufficiency and dignity. Diplomatic relations continued to evolve, with Muslim representatives establishing connections with various civilizations throughout the known world. Trade agreements facilitated not just economic exchange, but also cultural and intellectual interaction. Diplomatic missions carried messages of peace and cooperation while gathering information about other societies. These interactions helped position the Muslim community as an active participant in global affairs while maintaining its distinct identity and values. Throughout these developments, the principles established during Muhammad's lifetime remained central to community life. The emphasis on consultation, justice, and service continued to guide decision-making processes at all levels of society. Institutions evolved to meet changing needs while maintaining core commitments to human dignity and social responsibility. The integration of spiritual and practical dimensions of life provided a comprehensive framework for addressing both individual and collective challenges. The transformation of Arabian society under Muhammad's leadership demonstrated how religious conviction could drive positive social change. The establishment of institutions, development of legal systems, and creation of social welfare programs showed that faith could inspire practical solutions to real-world problems. The emphasis on education, consultation, and accountability provided mechanisms for maintaining progress while adapting to new circumstances. These achievements created a foundation for future development while establishing principles that would continue to guide human civilization in its quest for justice, equality, and peace. The integration of diverse populations into a unified community illustrated how shared values could transcend traditional barriers of tribe, language, and culture. The emphasis on mutual respect, collective responsibility, and individual dignity created a social fabric strong enough to withstand external pressures while flexible enough to accommodate legitimate differences. These principles of social organization would continue to influence community-building efforts long after Muhammad's departure from this world, serving as a model for creating inclusive societies based on shared humanity rather than superficial distinctions. As the Muslim community continued to grow and develop, its institutions evolved to address increasingly complex challenges. Administrative systems became more sophisticated, incorporating innovations in record-keeping, resource management, and public service delivery. Educational institutions expanded their curricula to include specialized fields of study while maintaining their commitment to holistic human development. Social welfare programs adapted to changing needs, developing targeted interventions while preserving their focus on empowering individuals and strengthening communities. The principles of governance established during this period emphasized accountability, transparency, and service to the public good. Leaders were expected to demonstrate both competence and character, with regular evaluations ensuring alignment between personal conduct and public responsibilities. Mechanisms for feedback and correction helped maintain institutional integrity while allowing for necessary adjustments. These governance principles helped create a system where authority was exercised responsibly and power was used for the benefit of all rather than the advantage of a few. Cultural development continued to flourish, with artistic expression finding new forms that reflected Islamic values while celebrating human creativity. Architectural innovations created spaces that inspired spiritual reflection while serving practical functions. Literary and scientific pursuits advanced knowledge while maintaining ethical boundaries. These cultural achievements demonstrated how faith could enhance human civilization rather than restrict it, showing that spiritual commitment and intellectual curiosity could coexist harmoniously. The emphasis on environmental stewardship reflected a deep understanding of humanity's relationship with the natural world. Conservation efforts protected vital resources while promoting sustainable practices. Agricultural innovations increased productivity while maintaining ecological balance. These environmental initiatives showed that economic development and environmental responsibility could go hand in hand, creating systems that benefited both present and future generations. As the community expanded geographically, mechanisms for maintaining unity while respecting diversity became increasingly important. Consultative processes ensured that different perspectives were considered while maintaining clear direction and purpose. Communication networks facilitated coordination between various centers while allowing for appropriate adaptation to local conditions. These organizational principles helped create a cohesive. The persecution in Mecca became unbearable, prompting Muhammad to advise his followers to migrate to Abyssinia, where they found refuge under King al-Najashi. Eventually, plans were made for the Hijra, the migration to Medina. With divine intervention, Muhammad escaped an assassination attempt and arrived safely in Medina with Abu Bakr. There, he established a mosque and a charter to unite the various tribes under the banner of Islam, bringing unprecedented peace and order. In Medina, the fledgling Muslim community faced numerous assaults from enemies. Key battles such as Badr and Uhud tested their resolve, but ultimately strengthened their faith. As Islam spread, delegations from across Arabia visited Medina, embracing the teachings of the Prophet. Muhammad sent companions to preach Islam far and wide, even writing letters to kings and rulers inviting them to accept Islam. In 632 CE, Muhammad performed his last pilgrimage, delivering a farewell sermon that emphasized equality and justice. Shortly thereafter, he fell ill and passed away on Monday, 12th Rabi al-Awwal, in Medina. His death marked the end of prophethood, but his legacy lived on. Abu Bakr was appointed as the first caliph, continuing the leadership of the Muslim community. Muhammad's simple yet profound life serves as a model for humanity, urging us to integrate his teachings into our daily lives. Peace and blessings be upon him.